Welcome to Nightmen Podcast, where real forest encounters, ranger stories, and dark mysteries come alive after midnight. Lower the lights and listen closely. The night has something to tell you.
Midnight Ouija board session. It was supposed to be just another late night dare, a typical Friday evening of boredom and bravado. My friends, Sarah, Mike, and I, had gathered in my apartment for a sleepover. Nothing unusual except for the Ouija board Mike had bought at a yard sale. Dusty, old, with faded letters and tiny cracks along its edges, it smelled faintly of mold and old wood. "I swear it's just a game," Sarah said nervously, her fingers hovering over the planchette. Mike grinned. "Come on, it'll be fun. Let's see if it works." I laughed, though my stomach twisted in uneasy anticipation. "Fine, let's do it, but no summoning demons or anything." We sat in a circle on the floor, lights dimmed, only a single candle flickering in the middle. Shadows danced along the walls, elongated and twisting. The air felt heavier, colder, charged. Every small noise, the hum of the refrigerator, the creak of the floorboards, suddenly sounded amplified, deliberate. "Is anyone there?" Mike asked, placing his fingers lightly on the planchette. Nothing. Then it moved. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, shifting beneath our fingertips. I froze. Sarah's eyes widened. "It's moving." "I'm not moving it," Mike said tight. The planchette spelled out Hello. A chill ran down my spine. The candle flickered violently. Shadows along the walls stretched unnaturally, coiling like smoke. The temperature dropped. I could see our breaths in the faint candlelight. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. The planchette moved again. M-A-R-K. "Mark?" Sarah laughed nervously. "Who's Mark?" The air shifted. A faint whisper brushed the edges of our ears, unintelligible at first, then forming words. "Do not stop." The planchette moved faster now, spelling words we couldn't anticipate, warnings we barely understood. "Leave, now." I tried to pull my hands back, but the pull was stronger than mine. The candle guttered, shadows twisting toward the center of the circle, pulling around the board like liquid darkness. Breathing became visible, cold, misty clouds coiling in the air. Then came a sound. Faint footsteps behind us. Slow, deliberate, pacing the edges of the room. The floorboards creaked under weight we couldn't see. Whispers layered over themselves, forming hundreds of voices. I tried to look around, but the room seemed to elongate, stretch, as if dimensions were bending. Sarah screamed. The planchette flew across the board and landed on a corner. The candle went out. Darkness swallowed the room, thick and suffocating. Shadows surged forward, rising along the walls, moving independently of the dim candlelight. "Mike, what's happening?" I whispered, panic rising. The planchette moved again. "Stay. Forever." We tried to get up, but the floor felt sticky, almost alive. The shadows reached for us, stretching long, cold, solid, wrapping around our legs. The air thickened, pressing against our chests. Whispers grew louder, now distinct and commanding. Do not leave. Join us forever. A figure emerged from the shadows. A girl. Thin, pale, hair tangled, dressed dark and wet. Hollow eyes stared directly at us. She floated slightly above the floor, her presence bending the shadows around her. Her voice layered over the whispers. You shouldn't be here. The walls themselves seemed to breathe, pulsing in response. Shadows coiled, writhed, and pressed against us without touching. The board moved violently beneath our fingers. Messages, warnings, please, leave now. You cannot escape. We tried to stand, tried to flee, but the shadows surged, surrounding us, pressing. The girl floated closer, hand extended. Her fingers grazed my arm. Cold, sharp, impossible. The whispers became deafening, layered, overlapping. Stay. Join us. Forever. I screamed and ripped my hand from the board. Sarah and Mike did the same. In that instant, the candle flared, shadows recoiling, giving us just enough space to scramble toward the door. The planchette jumped, spinning wildly across the board. We ran. Footsteps echoed behind us. Ours? Theirs. We didn't know. Every creak of the floor, every whisper of the shadows seemed amplified. Finally, we burst out of the apartment. The night air hit us, cold and wet. Fog curled around the streetlights, shadows moving independently. We didn't look back, but the whispers followed us home. Faint, almost imperceptible, yet always there. You can't leave. You joined. Forever. Nightmen Podcast. That night, none of us slept. Every shadow in our rooms seemed alive, stretching and writhing in impossible ways. Every creak, every whisper from outside, every draft of cold air reminded us of the Harrow house. And yet, something compelled us to return. Not curiosity, but a dreadful need to confront the darkness that had marked us. The mansion loomed through the fog, rain slicking the warped boards. Its windows were black, empty, yet watching. The front door swung open, as if expecting us. Inside, the air was thick, almost liquid, pressing down. Silence ruled, broken only by distant water dripping. The basement door waited, scarred, reinforced, emanating cold that crawled under our skin. When I touched the knob, a gust of air rushed past, smelling of iron, rot, and decay. Descending the stairs, flashlights barely pierced the darkness. The hidden passage at the far end yawned, dark as night. A whisper floated from it. Come, come, come. Every instinct screamed to run, but we moved forward, step by step, into the room where the air felt alive, pressing against our lungs. The room stretched beyond perception, walls etched with scratches, twisted faces frozen in silent screams, letters forming impossible warnings. Shadows wriggled, coiling like living things, waiting. Then she appeared, the girl, pale, thin, hair tangled, dress torn. Hollow eyes scanning us. Shadows rippled around her like liquid. Her voice layered over hundreds of whispers. You shouldn't be here. The floor shifted. A trapdoor slid open beneath crates, revealing stairs descending deeper into darkness. Her voice floated above the whispers. Down, it waits for you. Fear clawed at us, but some primal force pulled us forward, step by step, into air thick with iron and rot. Shadows clung to corners, faces in the walls twitching, mouths opening silently. Whispers layered, calling our names, pleading, warning. The girl floated closer, hand extended. Stay. Forever. Cold fingers grazed our skin. Shadows pressed, twisting, pulling. Figures emerged from the walls, pale, distorted, eyes wide open, mouths frozen mid-scream. Whispers escalated to a deafening chorus. We ran blindly, slipping on the wet floor. Flashlights spun, illuminating trapped figures, shadows writhing around the girl, pulling them back into the walls. Wet, gurgling sounds echoed from the darkness, like water mixed with something inhuman. Stairs to the upper basement appeared. We scrambled, hands clawing splintered wood, hearts hammering, shadows tugging, whispering. Finally, we burst through to the main basement. The trap door slammed shut, swallowing the lower room. Outside, rain drenched us, fog curling around our ankles. Knees weak, hearts racing, silence pressing like a physical weight. The mansion waited, patient, calculating, watching. Weeks passed. We avoided the street, the house, even talking about it. But the whispers followed us. Shadows stretched in our homes, elongated and impossible. Dreams were haunted by the basement, the girl, and the trapped figures. Research revealed decades of disappearances, hidden rooms, strange deaths. Folklore dismissed, but the truth was clear. The house was alive, and it had marked us. At night, I feel whispers in the walls, scratches behind doors, shadows stretching beyond sight. Cold fingers brush my skin. The voice comes softly, layered with hundreds of whispers. You opened my door. You cannot leave. I know, deep in my bones, one day we, or someone else, will return. The mansion will call. The basement will open. Shadows will move. The girl will wait, patient, hungry, eternal. The hidden room waits. The shadows wait. The girl waits. And when that day comes, escape may be impossible. Nightmen Podcast. Entering our best friend's haunted house. It was a dare. Not the kind of dare that ends with laughter or high fives. The kind that eats at your curiosity until you feel compelled, almost powerless to resist. Our best friend, Jake, had always claimed his new house had a history. Stories passed down from the previous owner, strange noises, unexplained shadows, doors that locked themselves. And we, of course, laughed. But curiosity always lingers in the quiet corners of your mind. And that night, we decided to see for ourselves. It was October, and the air had that sharp, biting edge only the Northeast can muster. The streets leading to Jake's house were narrow, lined with old oaks, whose leaves rattled like dry bones in the wind. As we approached, the house loomed. 2 stories, siding chipped and gray, windows staring like dark, unblinking eyes. A fog rolled in from the nearby woods, hugging the house in a shroud of mist. We parked the car and walked up the cracked stone path. The front door was unlocked, just like Jake had said. I stepped inside and the smell hit us immediately. Damp wood, dust, and something else. Faint, metallic, almost like iron. The air felt heavier, pressing against our lungs. Guys, it's colder in here than outside, whispered Ava. I nodded, flashlight in hand, the beam cutting through the dark living room. The furniture was draped in sheets, dust coating every surface. The air was still, too still. We called Jake's name, half laughing, half nervous. No answer. We split up, exploring. Every creak of the floor, Every flutter of the old curtains made our hearts race. Liam found the staircase leading to the basement, and that's when we heard it. A low, dragging sound, like something heavy being pulled across concrete. We froze. Probably just the wind, Liam whispered, though I could hear the doubt in his voice. We descended together. The basement door groaned as it opened, revealing stairs coated in dust and cobwebs. The air was colder here, damp and pungent, like mold had lived here for decades. We shined our flashlights across the room. Old furniture, crates, a broken freezer, and something else. A doorway we hadn't noticed before, small, reinforced with rusted bolts, scratches deep into the wood. The sound came again. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate, moving just beyond the reach of our lights. I swallowed hard. Did you guys hear that? Ava nodded, eyes wide. It's coming from behind that door. Curiosity outweighed fear. I reached for the handle. The metal was cold, far colder than anything else in the basement. My fingers shook as I turned it. The door creaked open, revealing a pitch-black room beyond. As we stepped in, the dragging sound stopped. Silence, heavy and complete, surrounded us. The beam of my flashlight cut through the darkness, revealing nothing at first. Then shadows shifted along the walls, subtle like smoke. And then the whispers started. Soft at first, almost imperceptible. One voice, then another, overlapping. Close the door. We froze. Jake? I called, my voice shaking. No answer. Ava stepped closer to the wall. It's not him, she whispered. It's something else. The room felt alive. The shadows moved independently of the light, stretching, twisting. Then the scratching began. Sharp, deliberate, like nails on wood. It came from the far wall. I shined my flashlight toward it. Marks, deep, chaotic scratches lined the wall. Some looked like letters, symbols. Others like faces, distorted, screaming silently. A cold wind rushed past us. The basement door slammed shut behind us. I lunged for it, but it wouldn't budge. And then we saw it. A figure, bent and tall, fingers impossibly long, emerging from the shadows. Its face was pale, partially obscured by the darkness, eyes black pits that seemed to pierce right through me. A chorus of whispers rose, layered, maddening. You opened my door. We ran. Not carefully, not silently, just ran. My foot caught on a broken crate, sending me sprawling across the concrete floor. Liam grabbed my arm, pulling me up. The figure seemed to glide after us, moving impossibly fast, but never fully stepping into the light. The staircase loomed ahead. We bolted up, one after another, barely breathing, hearts hammering. The basement door slammed again, as if in protest. Once we reached the main floor, the house was quiet. Too quiet. We didn't speak for minutes, just staring at each other, trying to process what we had seen. Something had been there. Something alive. Something patient. Something that had been waiting for us. And then a whisper, barely audible, from the dark hallway. Stay forever. We bolted outside. The fog wrapped around us like hands trying to drag us back. The streets were empty, the wind howling. We didn't stop until we were back in Liam's car, doors locked, hearts racing, trying to convince ourselves it had been our imagination. But none of us slept that night. Every creak in our own houses, every shadow, every flicker of light made us jump. The thing in Jake's basement had chosen us, and we knew deep down it wasn't done. Nightmen Podcast. We didn't sleep that night. Not a wink. Every shadow in our own homes seemed to breathe. Every gust of wind whispered Jake's house back into our minds. And as dawn broke, we made a pact. We had to return. Not out of curiosity, but to understand, to see what had been waiting in that basement. By late afternoon, we found ourselves driving back through the foggy streets, the skeletal branches of the trees clawing at the sky. The house sat like a dark sentinel at the end of the gravel road, windows dark and unwelcoming. Nothing about it had changed, yet everything about it screamed danger. The front door was unlocked, as before. Flashlights flickered as we stepped inside. The living room felt colder, heavier, as if the air had thickened overnight. "We shouldn't be doing this," Ava whispered, voice trembling. "No turning back now," I said, forcing myself forward. The staircase to the basement loomed like a gaping maw. Each step down made the old wood groan, echoing through the empty house. The door to the basement swung open easily, too easily, as if expecting us. The air was immediately different. Cold, wet, metallic. A low hum vibrated in the walls. Shadows danced along the edges of our flashlights. We exchanged nervous glances, then pressed forward. The reinforced door, the one with the scratches, was still there. Deep, jagged marks lined its frame. Something had tried to escape or enter since our last visit. The dragging sound returned, slow, deliberate, echoing from behind the door. I swallowed hard and reached for the knob. The metal was icy, almost burning. I turned it. The door creaked open into darkness. Inside, the room seemed bigger than before, the walls stretching impossibly. Shadows clung to every corner and whispers rose like a storm, layered and maddening. "Close the door. Stay." The scratching came again, sharp, urgent. It wasn't just the walls, it was the floor, the ceiling, the air itself. Then she appeared, the girl, pale, hair tangled, dress torn. Her hollow eyes scanned us, and the shadows around her shifted, writhing, stretching towards us. "You shouldn't have come back," she whispered, but her voice was layered with something else now. Sadness, anger, and something older, deeper, hungering. We tried to move backward. Every step was resisted by the air, thick and viscous, pressing on our bodies. Shadows reached out, brushing our arms, brushing our faces. The whispers multiplied. Some screamed, some laughed, some cried, all of them calling our names. Then the floor shifted. A section of it slid open, revealing a staircase descending further into darkness. The girl's voice floated above it. "Down. It's waiting." We knew we should turn back. We wanted to run, but fear had turned into fascination. Every instinct screamed danger, yet we couldn't look away. One by one, we descended. The lower room was alive. The walls pulsed as if breathing. Shadows moved independently, forming grotesque shapes. Faces etched in the wood twisted, screaming silently, mouths opening and closing as though trying to speak. The air was thick with the smell of rot, iron, and something I could not identify. The girl floated closer. Shadows clung to her, writhing. Her hand extended. "Join us, forever." Cold fingers gripped my arm. I screamed, struggling, but every movement was resisted by the air. Shadows pressed tighter, closing in. Faces emerged from the walls, bodies twisted and pale, eyes wide with terror. The whispers rose into a deafening chorus. Then the floor shifted. A section of it slid open, revealing a staircase descending further into darkness. The girl's voice floated above it. Down. It's waiting. We knew we should turn back. We wanted to run, but fear had turned into fascination. Every instinct screamed danger, yet we couldn't look away. One by one, we descended. The lower room was alive. The walls pulsed as if breathing. Shadows moved independently, forming grotesque shapes. Faces etched in the wood twisted, screaming silently, mouths opening and closing as though trying to speak. The air was thick with the smell of rot, iron, and something I could not identify. The girl floated closer. Shadows clung to her, writhing. Her hand extended. Join us, forever. Cold fingers gripped my arm. I screamed, struggling, but every movement was resisted by the air. Shadows pressed tighter, closing in. Faces emerged from the walls, bodies twisted and pale, eyes wide with terror. The whispers rose into a deafening chorus. We stumbled and fell. Liam tried to pull her up. The girl's face twisted, shifting like clay, morphing into something impossible. A wet, gurgling, inhuman voice echoed behind us. We bolted. Instinct, adrenaline, sheer terror driving us forward. My hand scraped against the walls as I climbed a staircase. My flashlight rolled, beam bouncing wildly, revealing the trapped figures, the girl, and the shadows weaving through them, pulling them back into the darkness. We burst through the gate to the basement, collapsing on the concrete floor. The reinforced door swung shut behind us, as if the house itself was swallowing the room whole. Silence. Absolute silence. The main staircase beckoned. We scrabbled up, hearts hammering, lungs burning. The house outside the basement was quiet. Normal. Too normal. We didn't stop until we were outside, gasping, knees weak, hearts pounding. The fog wrapped around us like unseen hands. Not a sound, not a movement. Just the house, watching, waiting. Days passed, weeks. We avoided the house, avoided the streets, avoided thinking about what had happened. But the whispers followed us. Subtle at first, a creak in the floor, the flicker of a shadow. Always a soft, persistent voice brushing the edge of perception. You opened my door. You can't leave. I researched the house, the previous owners, and the town's history. Stories of missing people, haunted basements, hidden rooms, all dismissed as superstition. Except I knew better. I had seen it, felt it, survived it. And yet, I could never escape it entirely. The hidden room, the girl, the shadows, they were patient, intelligent, waiting. And they had marked us. At night, I hear whispers, scratches behind walls, shadows stretching too long, moving just beyond sight. I know that one day we or someone else will return. And when we do, the house will be ready. Because it waits. Patient, hungry, and eternal. I can still hear her voice, faint, soft, almost teasing. Stay. Forever. And I know deep in my bones that the house will not forget. It will call again. And next time, we may not be able to escape. Nightman Podcast. Exploring the creepy basement. We always knew something was wrong with that house. Not because it looked abandoned or broken, but because it didn't. Everything on that street in northern Pennsylvania looked normal. Fresh painted porches, trimmed lawns, new asphalt. But that one house stood too perfect, too untouched. like it hadn't aged with the rest of the neighborhood, like it was frozen in time. And for the longest time, we avoided it. But everything changed when our friend, Evan, moved into the house next door. He was excited, proud even. It was his first place alone, a small rental just starting to show some age. And from his bedroom window, he could see directly into the basement windows of the house next door, the creepy one. That basement's always dark, he told us one night, even when it's daytime. We didn't think much of it until the night he called us, his voice shaking, whispering, begging us to come over. "There's something moving down there," he said. "I know the house is empty, but I heard footsteps. Someone's down there." We drove over fast. Me, Tyler, and Marcus. The air felt colder than usual as we got out of the car. The wind didn't blow. The trees didn't move. It was like the entire street was holding its breath. Evan stood outside waiting for us, eyes wide, hands shaking. He pointed at the basement window. "There," he whispered. "Look." At first, we saw nothing. The window was a black square filled with shadows. But then, something shifted. Not a person, not an animal, a shadow. A shape darker than the dark around it, moving slow, deliberate, as if it knew we were watching. We didn't want to go in, but we were 17, too stupid, too curious, too full of that reckless adrenaline that makes you believe nothing in the world can actually hurt you. The back door of the house was unlocked. Inside, the air was stale. The main floor was stripped, empty, clean in a way that didn't match the feeling of the place. There was no furniture, no dust on the floor, no smell, just a heavy silence pressing down like weight. The basement door sat at the end of the hallway, closed. Thick, old wood, newer luck. Too new, like someone had repaired only that part, only that door. A thin draft seeped from underneath it, carrying a faint smell of wet concrete, and something else, something metallic. Tyler reached for the knob. "You sure?" I asked. "No," he answered, but he turned it anyway. The door swung open with a low, deep groan, like the house itself was waking up. Cold air rose from the stairway, brushing across our faces like icy fingers. The light switch didn't work. Our phone flashlights barely lit the first few steps. We started descending. Every footstep echoed with a hollow, unnatural vibration, like we were stepping on something that wasn't entirely solid. The air grew colder, the smell stronger. A blend of mold, dust, and something sharp, like old metal or dried blood. At the bottom of the stairs, the basement stretched out in darkness. The walls looked damp, the floor uneven, and the far left corner, the darkest corner, had a wooden panel leaning against the wall. Something was behind it. We could hear it breathing. Slow, wet, raspy. Marcus whispered, "We should go back." But something moved behind the panel. And then the panel fell on its own. Behind it was a doorway, a hidden room. The air that poured out was so cold it felt like it burned. Our flashlights flickered. The walls inside the small room were covered in scratches, deep, violent, desperate. Some were words, but we couldn't read them. Not because they weren't in English, but because they were carved by someone whose hands were shaking so violently the letters twisted into jagged shapes. Then we saw it. A small cot, old, rusted. And on top, it looked like a dress, white, torn, soaked with something dark that had dried long ago. Evan whispered, shaking, "Guys, somebody lived in here." Before any of us could react, something scraped across the far wall of the hidden room. Then, footsteps. Soft, bare, slow. Something was coming. We backed up towards the main basement area, flashlights trembling in our hands. The temperature dropped so fast our breath turned white. Then she appeared, a small girl, standing in the doorway of the hidden room. But she wasn't normal. Her skin was pale gray, her hair long, tangled, dripping as if she just climbed out of deep water. Her head tilted too far to the side, resting against her shoulder in a way no living person could hold. She stared at us with empty black eyes. Not angry, not sad, but hungry. We froze. She took one step forward. The basement lights flickered on for a split second. In that moment, we saw the scratches on the walls more clearly. Not words, not symbols. Tallies. Hundreds. Thousands. As if someone had been tracking time. Or victims. The girl whispered something then. Not loud, not directed at us. A whisper like she was speaking to the shadows behind her. More. The lights went out again, and the basement erupted in sound. Footsteps sprinting across the floor, nails dragging across the walls, something breathing rapidly behind us, something else crawling fast across the ceiling. We ran. The basement door slammed shut behind us just as we reached the top of the stairs. I don't even remember how we got outside. I only remember the cold, the screams, the shadows moving in impossible patterns, and the girl standing in the doorway as we escaped, tilting her head, smiling, pointing, like she knew we'd be back. We didn't sleep that night, and we knew this wasn't over. Nightmen Podcast. The night we returned, the air around the house felt heavier, charged, as if the walls themselves were breathing. The rain fell relentlessly, drumming on the roof in a steady, hypnotic rhythm. Fog wrapped the house like a shroud, thick and suffocating. Every instinct in me screamed to turn around, run, never come back. But we couldn't. Something pulled us forward, unseen, insistent. The basement door loomed before us, the same old wood scarred and worn, emanating that metallic, rotten smell we had hoped to forget. My hand hovered over the doorknob. Tyler's fingers trembled as he reached out. Evan didn't say a word, his eyes fixed on the shadows spilling from beneath the crack of the door. We descended together, each step heavier than the last, as though the staircase itself were trying to resist us. The darkness swallowed our flashlights almost immediately. Only the faint glow illuminated shapes in the corners, twisted shadows that weren't quite attached to anything solid. The lower doorway, the one that led to the hidden room, gaped like an open mouth. A whisper drifted out. Come, come, come. We froze. Every muscle screamed to flee, yet our legs moved forward of their own accord. The air thickened, pressing on our chests, filling our lungs with icy dread. As we stepped into the hidden room, the walls seemed to stretch, twisting beyond the bounds of normal architecture. Scratches marked every surface, deep, frantic, forming faces frozen in silent terror. Shadows clung to these faces, writhing like water in a storm. And then she appeared. The girl, pale, gaunt, hair tangled, dress torn and wet. Her black, hollow eyes locked onto ours, unblinking, unyielding. The shadows around her rippled, almost alive, moving as if anticipating our every reaction. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered, her voice layered with others, soft, pleading, angry. Shadows reached out, brushing against our arms without touch, pressing, warning, guiding. Every instant in us screamed to turn around, run. But the room itself resisted us. Walls pulsing, floor shifting, the scratches in the walls glowing faintly, forming faces of people lost, trapped, marked. Then the floor beneath some crates shifted. A hidden trap door slid open, revealing stairs leading deeper into darkness. Her voice floated above it, ethereal, commanding. "Down. It waits for you." Fear clawed at us, yet some primal compulsion urged us onward. Step by step, we descended, the air growing colder, heavier, tasting of iron and rot. Shadows clung to every corner. Faces etched into the walls twitched and contorted, mouths opening in silent screams. Whispers layered over themselves, calling our names, pleading, warning. The girl floated closer, hand extended. "Stay. Forever." Cold fingers gripped my arm. A scream tore from my throat. Shadows pressed tighter. Figures emerging from walls, pale, twisted, eyes frozen mid-scream. The whispers crescendoed into an impossible, deafening harmony of terror. We ran blindly, slipping on wet, grimy floors, flashlights spinning, illuminating the trapped figures as the shadows pulled them back into the walls. A wet, gurgling sound echoed from the darkness behind us, like water mixed with something inhuman. The stairs leading back to the main basement beckoned. We scrambled, tearing our hands across splintered wood, clawing at walls as shadows reached, whispering, pressing, tugging. Finally, we burst through the gap. The trapdoor slammed shut behind us, as if the house had swallowed the lower room whole. Outside, rain drenched us, knees weak, hearts pounding. Fog wrapped around us like unseen fingers. Silence. Not a sound, not a movement, just the house, watching, waiting. Days passed, weeks. We avoided the street, avoided speaking of it, tried to convince ourselves we had imagined it. But the whispers followed, faintly, everywhere. Floor creaks sounded like footsteps. Shadows stretched in impossible ways. Our dreams were haunted by the basement, the girl, the trapped figures. I researched the house, delving into records, old newspapers, stories of missing people, strange deaths, unexplained disappearances, dismissed as superstition, folklore. But I knew better. I had seen it, felt it, survived it. And yet, we couldn't escape it entirely. The house, the basement, the girl. They were patient, calculating, intelligent, waiting. And they had marked us. At night, I hear whispers in the walls, scratches behind doors, shadows stretching just beyond my vision. Sometimes cold fingers brush my skin. The voice comes softly, teasing, demanding. "You opened my door. You cannot leave." I know in my bones that one day we, or someone else, will return. The house will call. The basement will open. Shadows will move. The girl will wait. Patient, hungry, eternal. The hidden room waits. The shadows wait. The girl waits for us. And when that day comes, we may not be able to escape. Nightmen Podcast.
Hidden room behind the closet. We didn't plan to find the hidden room. It wasn't on any map, it wasn't mentioned in the history books, and nobody had ever spoken of it. But when my friend Kyle moved into the old Victorian house on the outskirts of town, we all knew there was something off about it. The kind of off that makes your skin crawl before you even step inside. The house was large, creaking in every corner, full of narrow hallways and rooms that smelled of dust, old wood, and something else, something faintly metallic like rusted iron. It started on the first night. Kyle had been unpacking boxes in his bedroom, just the three of us, me, Tyler, and him, when we heard it, a faint creaking, almost rhythmic, coming from the closet in the far corner. At first, we ignored it. Closets creak, old houses creak, houses settle. But the sound continued, growing slower, heavier, deliberate. It didn't match the floorboards or the wind outside. It was coming from inside the closet itself. Kyle's hand shook as he reached for the door handle. "It's probably just the hinges," he said, but his voice betrayed him. The first squeak of the closet door echoed through the otherwise silent house. Dust motes floated in the weak glow of the bedside lamp. As Kyle pulled it open, a rush of cold air spilled out, carrying the faint smell of damp earth and decay. The darkness inside the closet wasn't like normal darkness. It was thicker, almost tactile, like it pressed against your skin. I held up my flashlight. Its beam cut through the first few feet of the closet, revealing nothing, just the familiar hangers and some old coats. Then I noticed it. The back panel of the closet didn't match the rest of the wall. The wood was newer, smoother, almost polished, and it had a small iron keyhole at its center. "Someone locked something in there," Tyler whispered. Kyle shook his head. "There's no key. We shouldn't. But curiosity is a dangerous thing. And teenagers are even worse when it comes to curiosity." I pulled the flashlight closer, illuminating the keyhole. A faint vibration traveled up the wood, almost like it was humming. And then we heard it. A whisper, soft, sibilant, coming from behind the wall itself. "Come in." We froze. The whisper didn't sound human. It layered itself, echoing, overlapping, rising and falling, almost pleading. The hair on my arms stood on end, my breath fogged in the sudden chill that crept into the closet. Kyle swallowed hard. "We shouldn't. We should just leave it." But the closet door began to move on its own, swinging open wider, revealing the back panel more clearly. Behind it, a narrow gap appeared. Darkness stretched inward, infinite, deep, and faintly we could make out the shape of stairs, narrow, wooden, descending into absolute blackness. Tyler stepped forward. "He's going down," he said, voice trembling but determined. "No," Kyle whispered, grabbing his shoulder. "We don't know what's down there." But the pull was irresistible. Someone was calling us. The air from the gap was cold and wet, pressing against our faces like invisible hands, carrying the metallic tank of blood or iron or something worse. We lit our flashlights and descended. Every step groaned under our weight. Dust and debris shifted beneath our feet, echoing in the darkness. The walls were close, damp and smelled of mold. Shadows danced along them, twisting unnaturally in response to our lights. And then we heard it. Footsteps. Slow, soft, deliberate. Following us. Echoing, but never quite aligned with our own pace. The narrow stairway opened into a small room. At first it seemed empty, but then the flashlight caught something on the floor. Scratches. Deep scratches, etched into the old wooden floor, forming words we couldn't quite read. And at the far wall, a small figure emerged from the corner. A girl. Young, thin, hair tangled, dress torn, feet bare and covered in dust. Her skin was pale, almost gray, and her eyes, black, hollow, staring straight through us. She didn't move quickly, didn't run. She floated,
her dress brushing the floor, moving like a shadow herself. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered. The voice layered itself, soft, pleading, angry, overlapping in impossible ways. Shadows moved behind her, rising along the walls, coiling, reaching, pressing against us. I raised my flashlight, shaking, illuminating the room. The walls weren't just walls anymore. They were alive. Faces formed in the wood and plaster, mouths open, frozen screams, eyes wide with terror. Scratches glowed faintly, wriggling like worms. Suddenly, the girl reached a hand toward us, cold, skeletal, her fingers brushing my arm without touching me physically. The shadow surged, responding to her movement, pressing closer, moving faster. Tyler screamed, dropping his flashlight. The beam spun wildly, illuminating. Shapes. Pale figures, twisted, trapped inside the walls, moving with the shadows. Some faces looked familiar, distorted versions of people we'd seen around town, or maybe people who never existed. I couldn't tell. The whispers rose, layered, deafening, calling our names, warning us. The floor shuddered. From under a pile of old boxes, a hidden trapdoor slid open, revealing stairs descending even deeper. Her voice floated above, almost melodic. "Down, it waits for you." Fear gripped us, but a primal instinct, hunger for answers, for survival, for escape, pushed us forward. We descended, the air growing colder, heavier, thick with rot and damp. Shadows clung to corners, twisting around objects. Faces in the walls twitched, mouths opening in silent screams. The whispers became a chorus, echoing from every surface, calling, pleading, threatening. The girl floated closer. "Stay, forever." Cold fingers gripped my arm. The shadows pressed tighter. Figures emerged fully from the walls, pale, twisted, eyes wide, mouths frozen mid-scream. Whispers rose into an impossible, deafening harmony. We ran blindly, slipping on the wet, grimy floor. Flashlights spun, illuminating trapped figures, shadows pulling them back into the walls. A wet, gurgling sound echoed behind us, like water mixed with something inhuman. The stairs back to the upper level beckoned us. We scrambled, tearing hands across splintered wood, claws dragging against walls as shadows reached, tugging, whispering. Finally, we burst through the gap to the main basement. The trapdoor slammed shut behind us, as if the house had swallowed the lower room whole. Outside, the fog wrapped around us, wet and suffocating. Rain poured, drenching us, knees weak, hearts pounding. Silence. The house watched, waited. We knew. We had survived part one, but the house was patient. The hidden room wasn't done with us. Nightmen Podcast.
We didn't sleep that night, not a wink. Every creak in our own homes sounded like the house. Every shadow felt alive. Every gust of wind carried the memory of that basement. And yet, something drew us back. Not curiosity, not bravery. Something darker, something we couldn't resist. By the next evening, we were standing again at the foot of that old Victorian house. Rain soaked us instantly, fog swirling around our ankles. The front door opened easily, as if expecting us. Inside, the air was heavier than before, thick with anticipation, suffocating. Silence pressed down on us, broken only by the low hum of dripping water somewhere deep in the shadows. The basement door loomed ahead, scarred wood and rusted bolts catching the dim light. A chill radiated from it even before our hands touched the knob. When we opened it, a gust of cold air rushed past us, carrying that metallic, rotten scent we had hoped to forget. Descending, our flashlights barely pierced the darkness. The walls seemed to breathe, shadows twisting unnaturally along the corners. At the far end, the hidden room, the darkness pulled like a living thing. And then we heard it, a whisper curling around us. "Come, come, come." We froze. Every instinct screamed to flee. Yet, we stepped forward. The room pressed against our lungs, cold, solid, alive. Scratches etched into the walls glowed faintly.
faces forming in the wood, twisted in silent screams. Shadows moved with intent, climbing, reaching, waiting. Then she appeared, the girl, pale, thin, hair tangled, dress soaked and torn. Her hollow eyes scanned us, and the shadows around her rippled like water. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered, her voice layered with others, a chorus of soft, pleading, angry tones. Shadows brushed us without touch, pressing, guiding, warning. We tried to retreat, but the air thickened, resisting, walls pulsing as if alive, syncing with our racing hearts. Scratches glowed brighter, faces twitching. Then the floor shifted. A hidden trapdoor beneath some crates slid open, revealing stairs descending even deeper. Her voice floated above. "Down. It waits for you." Fear clawed at us, but something primal, something beyond logic drove us. Step by step, we descended. The air grew colder, heavier, smelling of iron and rot. Shadows clung to corners. Faces etched into the walls seemed alive, mouths opening in silent screams. Whispers layered over themselves, calling our names, pleading, warning. The girl floated closer, hand extended. "Stay. Forever." Cold fingers grabbed my arm. I screamed. Shadows pressed tighter. Figures emerged fully from the walls, pale, twisted, eyes wide, mouths frozen mid-scream. Whispers crescendoed, a deafening harmony of terror. We ran blindly, slipping on the wet, grimy floor. Flashlights spun, illuminating trapped figures as shadows pulled them back into the walls. A wet, gurgling sound echoed behind us, like water mixed with something inhuman. The stairs to the upper basement beckoned. We scrambled, hands clawing at splintered wood, hearts racing. Finally, we burst through the gap to the main basement. The trapdoor slammed shut behind us. The house had swallowed the lower room whole. Outside, rain drenched us, fog curling around us like unseen fingers. Silence. Only the house, waiting, watching. Days passed. Weeks. We avoided the street, avoided conversation, tried to convince ourselves it had been a hallucination. But whispers followed us. Shadows stretched in impossible ways. Dreams were haunted by the basement, the girl, and the trapped figures. I researched the house. Old newspapers, archives, police reports, stories of missing people, strange deaths, hidden rooms. The town dismissed them as superstition, folklore. But we knew better. I had seen it, felt it, survived it. And yet, we couldn't escape entirely. The house, the basement, the girl, they were patient, calculating, intelligent, waiting. They had marked us. At night, whispers in the walls, scratches behind doors, shadows just beyond sight. Cold fingers brush our skin. The voice comes softly, teasing, demanding. "You opened my door. You cannot leave." We know in our bones. One day we, or someone else, will return. The house will call, the basement will open, the shadows will move, and the girl will wait. Patient, hungry, eternal. The hidden room waits. The shadows wait. The girl waits for us. And when that day comes, there may be no escape. Nightmen Podcast. Caught on camera. Strange shadows. We never believed in the old stories about the neighborhood until the camera showed us the truth. It started as a joke. I had bought an old security camera at a garage sale for cheap, mostly to watch my apartment while I was out. But this one, it was different. Heavy, old, industrial looking, with a lens that seemed to swallow light instead of capturing it. I set it up in the living room, just facing the large sliding doors to the balcony. My roommate, Marcus, laughed.
Dude, you're going to catch a squirrel or something, he joked. I shrugged. Whatever. Let's see if it even works. The first night was normal. Footsteps from the hallway, our cat knocking over a plant, the hum of the refrigerator. But the next night, something changed. I was scrolling through the footage after dinner when I saw it. A shadow. At first, I thought it was a trick of the light. The curtain had moved, a reflection in the window, but it didn't move like a reflection. It moved against the reflection. A dark shape, almost human, lingering at the edge of the balcony, dissolving into the darkness, then flickering out of view. I froze. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. Marcus leaned over my shoulder. See, it's nothing. But as I replayed the footage frame by frame, the shadow moved again. Closer this time. Inside. On the glass. It didn't have a face. Just a shapeless mass. Dark. Like someone smeared black paint across the lens. And yet, you could feel it looking at you. I swear, you could feel it. We set up more cameras. Every corner, every hallway, every room, everywhere the shadows moved. Always at the edge of the frame. Never fully captured, always just out of reach, but always there, watching, waiting. One night, I was alone. The apartment was silent, but the cameras flickered. Footsteps, soft, deliberate, echoing down the hallway, breathing, shallow, cold. I grabbed my flashlight. Nothing. Then the sliding door rattled. The shadow appeared again, flickering, dissolving into the dark. I screamed, ran to the door, but it was locked. Keys in my pocket. Locked from inside. The shadow pressed against the glass. I could feel its weight. It moved like water, shifting, changing, but its outline unmistakably human. And then it smiled. Not a normal smile. A stretch of black, hollow lips across a shapeless face. I bolted to the living room. Footsteps behind me, but nothing was there. The cameras recorded everything. The footage showed me running, alone. Yet, the shadows moved too, following, climbing the walls, pooling near the corners. Marcus came home later. The lights flickered. Shadows disappeared when he entered. I showed him the footage. He turned pale. This isn't real, he said. But we knew better. The next day, we checked the balcony footage. The shadow was gone, but the glass door was smeared, streaked with what looked like handprints, and we didn't own any paint. Then at night, whispers, low, almost human, almost words, coming from the corners of the room. The cameras recorded it, faint, distorted, breathing, creaking, scraping. The shadows moved in every corner, just outside the light. We didn't sleep, not a wink. Every noise seemed amplified, every shadow stretched, and we couldn't stop watching the cameras because if we looked away, it might move closer. Then the last footage, I'll never forget it. I checked the night's recordings. Footsteps again. Slow, deliberate. The shadow crossed the room, and in one frame, clear and focused, standing in the middle of the living room, me. Or at least something wearing my shape, my face,
frozen in that hollow smile. I didn't touch the playback. I couldn't. The shadow had learned. It was no longer just watching. It was mimicking, waiting. I heard the whispers again, soft, sibilant. Come, join us. And that's when I knew we weren't alone. Not ever again. Nightmen Podcast. That night, we couldn't sleep. Every creak in the apartment sounded like footsteps. Every shadow seemed to twitch. Marcus and I sat in the living room, surrounded by cameras, screens glowing, shadows moving at the edges of the frames. We couldn't stop watching. Then, the whispers started again. Soft, layered, almost pleading, coming from the corners of the room. Come, come, join us. I froze. The air grew heavy, pressing against my chest. My flashlight flickered. In the reflection of the sliding glass door, I saw it. A shadow, darker than any darkness, standing just behind me. No face, just an outline, humanoid, shifting as if it flowed like smoke. I spun around, nothing. But the cameras recorded everything. And in the playback, the shadow was always there, following, mimicking, studying, not just watching anymore, learning. Footsteps echoed from the hallway. I could hear breathing, shallow, icy. I reached for the nearest camera monitor. The shadow flickered in and out of view. Then it appeared closer, hovering in the corner of the room, pressing against the wall, spreading like a stain across the floor. Marcus whispered, shaking, "It's not just a shadow. It's alive." The lights flickered violently. Doors creaked open and slammed shut on their own. Every camera flashed static, then showed distorted images. Us, but wrong. Faces stretched, mouths elongated, eyes blackened, staring hollow. I grabbed my phone to call for help, but the line was dead. Marcus tried his phone too. Nothing. And then we saw it in the main monitor. Not just one shadow, but dozens, emerging from walls, floors, ceilings, moving unnaturally in ways bodies shouldn't move. Creeping, crawling, sliding. They pulled near us, forming shapes that were almost human, yet horrifyingly wrong. The whispers rose in a deafening crescendo. Words overlapped, distorted. Join, 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 stay, stay, stay. A certain coldness gripped me. Fingers unseen brushed my arm. I screamed. Marcus screamed. The shadows pressed closer. I stumbled backwards, crashing into the coffee table, shattering it. Pieces of wood and glass cut our hands, but we didn't notice. All we could see was the movement, the shadows surrounding us, climbing the walls, twisting through the air, pulling at our feet. Then a single figure emerged from the mass, a taller shadow, humanoid, but faceless. It raised a hand, pointing directly at me. The whispers focused, sharpened, commanding. Come, join us. I tried to run, but the floor beneath my feet felt sticky, almost alive. The shadows tugged at me, cold and unyielding. Marcus grabbed my arm. We struggled, slipping on the wet, sticky floor that wasn't there before. Like the apartment itself had changed. Walls stretched, ceilings lowered, doors warped and twisted. The shadow figure advanced. I could feel its presence pressing into my mind, cold and heavy. My thoughts scrambled. Fear, panic, the instinct to survive. Everything was a fog. And yet, we couldn't look away. Its faceless gaze held us frozen in place. Then came the voice, clear, deep, layered over hundreds of whispers. Stay forever. I screamed and broke free from Marcus's grip, stumbling toward the front door. The shadows surged, flowing faster than human eyes could track. They twisted, coiling, grasping, filling every corner, every crevice. The whispers became a roar, deafening, demanding. I reached the door, my hand on the knob, Marcus behind me, pale and trembling. I turned it, and the shadows recoiled, shrieking, melting into the walls. The apartment seemed to exhale. The front door swung open. Rain and fog greeted us, and we stumbled outside, collapsing on the sidewalk, drenched, gasping. The night was silent, too silent. The apartment behind us stood still, windows dark, waiting, watching. We didn't speak, didn't move. We only sat in the cold rain, hearts pounding, knowing the shadows had marked us. Weeks passed. The footage we captured, corrupted, distorted, nearly unwatchable. But fragments remained, shadows moving in impossible ways, whispers echoing through the speakers, faces in the walls that weren't human, yet somehow familiar. And at night, even in our own homes, we hear them. Footsteps just beyond the walls, breathing in the dark, shadows stretching across the floor when no light is present. And sometimes in the corner of a room, I catch a flicker, a darker shadow, almost human, faceless, watching. One night, I woke to a cold brush across my face, a whisper in my ear. Join us. I didn't move. I can't. Because deep down, I know the shadows are patient. They wait for the moment we let our guard down, the moment we look away, the moment we think we're safe. Then they will return. And when they do, we may not survive it. Nightmen, the whispering walls. It began the moment we moved into the old brick townhouse on Maple Street. The kind of house with peeling paint, warped floors, and a history whispered about in the neighborhood. Locals avoided it. Kids dared each other to touch the door handle. But we, foolish and eager, had rented it anyway. The first night, it was subtle. A faint creaking behind the walls. Whispering. Almost imperceptible, like the house itself was talking. My roommate, Jenna, laughed nervously. Old houses settle. That's all. I wanted to believe her. But the sounds grew. Footsteps. Soft, deliberate. Pacing across the floors above us, though the house was empty. Doors creaked in the hallways. The whispering became words, fragmented, unintelligible. Yet if you strained, they almost formed sentences. Come, stay, listen. At first, we thought it was imagination, but the whispers were persistent, intelligent, reacting to us. Sometimes, when we spoke, the murmurs would mimic our voices, low, distorted, layered in impossible ways. One night, I set up an audio recorder in the living room just to see. At first, it captured silence. Then, after midnight, it recorded voices, whispers, calling names, overlapping, echoing inside the walls. I played it back and froze. One of the whispers, distinct and deliberate, said, "You shouldn't be here." I checked the walls, running my hands along the cold, damp plaster. There were scratches, thin, frantic lines that weren't there before. Shadows stretched along the corners, moving even when the lights were on. The house seemed alive, and it was watching. Jenna insisted we leave, but neither of us could. A strange pull kept us inside, a terrible curiosity. Every night, the whispers grew louder, more coherent. They began to form sentences. Look, follow, open, the room. Then came the knocking. Soft at first, tapping inside the walls, then louder, more rhythmic. Something was moving behind the plaster. Something that didn't belong. We discovered the first clue the following night, a small panel in the living room wall hidden behind an old bookshelf. The wood was newer than the rest of the wall, smoother. Behind it, a narrow opening. Darkness, thick and oppressive, pressing at the edges of our flashlight beams. Jenna, we shouldn't. I started, but she was already moving toward it. The moment we peered inside, a rush of cold air spilled into the room, carrying the faint smell of damp earth, of something long decayed. The whispers were louder now, urgent, almost screaming. Come, come, come. The walls seemed to pulse, contracting and expanding as though alive. Shadows twisted inside the opening, moving with purpose, reaching, waiting. We stepped in, flashlights trembling in our hands. The hidden passage was narrow, damp, and impossibly deep. Every step echoed, multiplied, the sound layering into dozens of faint footsteps behind us. Though we were alone, scratches along the walls glowed faintly, forming faces contorted in silent screams. And then we saw her. A girl, pale, thin, hair tangled, eyes hollow and black, dress torn and wet. She floated, her presence bending the shadows around her. Her voice was layered, soft, pleading, angry, rising and falling in impossible harmonics. You shouldn't be here. The walls pulsed in response. Shadows wriggled like living things, brushing against us without touching. The whispers crescendoed, calling our names, warning, pleading. The house had marked us. The passage widened, revealing a room beyond. Scratches formed words. Stay. Forever. The air pressed against our lungs. We could hear whispers behind the walls, so many, hundreds, overlapping. The girl drifted closer. Stay, she said again. Fingers reaching. Cold. Solid. Real. We tried to step back, but the air thickened, resisting. The walls pulsed like a heartbeat, synced with our own. Faces twisted into plaster, mouths opening in silent screams. Shadows gathered, forming figures, moving with intelligence, reaching toward us. A trapdoor in the floor slid open with a grinding screech, revealing stairs descending further into darkness. The whispers called us, beckoned. Down. It waits. We had no choice. The pull was irresistible. Step by step, we descended into air thick with rot, cold, heavy, alive. Shadows clung to corners, faces in the walls twitching, mouths opening in silent screams. Whispers layered over themselves, echoing through the passage. We ran blindly, tripping, slipping on the wet floor. The girl floated behind us, hand extended, whispering, Stay. Forever. We barely made it back to the hidden passage entrance. The panel slammed shut behind us, sealing the darkness. Outside, the townhouse felt still, silent, waiting, watching. Nightman Podcast.
That night, sleep didn't come. Every creak of the old townhouse floorboards sounded like footsteps. Every flicker of shadow against the wall seemed to move independently, alive. Jenna and I huddled in the living room, flashlights trembling in our hands, the faint hum of our recording devices capturing every sound. The walls whispered. They always whispered. Come, follow, listen. Soft, layered, impossible to ignore. The voices weren't outside us. They were inside. The plaster walls breathed around us, pulsing faintly in rhythm with our heartbeats. The scratches, the faces etched into the walls twisted and shifted, as if observing, judging, remembering. Then came the knocking, from inside the walls themselves. Slow, deliberate, then faster, more urgent. Footsteps echoed along the narrow hallways, but no one was there. A door creaked open in the distance, then slammed shut violently. The whispers rose in pitch, layering into a deafening chorus. Stay. Stay forever. Join us. Jenna clutched my arm. We have to leave, now. I nodded, but the house had other plans. Shadows stretched along the walls, rising like smoke, reaching toward us. The temperature dropped. Breathing became visible, a fog of cold mist that moved unnaturally. A figure emerged from the darkness. The girl. Pale, thin, hair tangled, eyes hollow, dress wet and torn. She floated, effortlessly through the shadows. Her voice layered over hundreds of whispers. You shouldn't be here. The walls pulsed again. Shadows writhed like living things, pressing against us, yet never touching. We tried to step back, but the air thickened, pushing us forward, forcing us toward the hidden passage. The trapdoor in the floor groaned as it slid open, revealing the stairs descending further into darkness. The whispers became a chorus, insistent, commanding. Down. It waits. Fear clawed at every inch of my body, but we moved, step by step, into darkness so thick it felt solid. The air smelled of rot, wet earth, and something metallic, something old. Shadows clung to every corner. Faces formed in the walls, twitching, mouths open in silent screams, eyes following our every move. The girl floated closer, her hand extended, cold as death itself. Stay. Forever. We ran blindly, tripping on the slick, wet floor, our flashlights spinning. Shadows followed, moving faster than humanly possible, stretching and coiling. Shapes emerged from the walls, pale, twisted, faceless figures, some resembling people we had known, distorted beyond recognition. The whispers became a deafening roar. Join, stay, forever. I screamed, clawing at the walls for purchase. Jenna grabbed my hand, and we scrambled toward the stairs leading back to the living room. Shadows pressed, tugged, curling around our limbs, cold and solid, dragging at us. The stairs groaned under our weight. One misstep and we nearly fell into the black void below, but we made it. The panel slammed shut behind us, sealing the horrors once again. Outside, the townhouse was silent, still, waiting. Days passed, weeks. We avoided the rooms, avoided the house, tried to convince ourselves it had all been imagination. But the whispers, they followed. Shadows stretched unnaturally in our homes. We dreamed of the walls, the girl, the faces etched into plaster. Audio recordings captured more than we could comprehend. Layers of voices, faint footsteps, scratching, whispers forming coherent phrases. You opened my door. You cannot leave. One night, alone, I heard the cold brush of fingers against my arm. Whispers curled in my ear, soft,
sibilant, but commanding. Come back, join us, stay forever. The realization hit us. We had been marked. The walls remembered. They were patient. They waited for the moment we let our guard down, for the moment we thought we were safe. We moved out eventually, but the memories never left. Whispers in the walls, shadows at the edge of vision, and the girl, always watching, always patient, always waiting. I know deep down that one day we, or someone else, will return. The walls will breathe again. The shadows will rise. The whispers will call. And when that day comes, we may not escape. The whispering walls are eternal. They remember. They wait. And we are not alone. Nightmen Podcast. Paranormal activity caught on tape. We never intended to capture anything paranormal. The cameras were just for a small project, a home documentary to record everyday life in our new rental house on Elm Street. It was an old, colonial, quiet, isolated, perfect for privacy, but not perfect for living. The first night, nothing happened. Doors creaked, floors groaned, the usual settling of an old house. I watched the footage in the morning. Everything normal. Then, the second night, the disturbances began. At 2:13 a.m., the camera in the living room flickered. Shadows moved unnaturally along the walls, not aligned with the candlelight. Something heavy seemed to pass behind the couch. Slow, deliberate. We paused the footage. I rewound, frame by frame. Nothing was there, but the feeling, the unease, it remained. Later that night, the kitchen camera captured it. Cabinets opened slightly on their own, rattling softly. A drawer slid halfway out, then back, almost as if invisible hands were searching. The shadows stretched along the corners of the room, pulsing in the faint light. A whisper, faint and garbled, echoed from the footage. Get out. I shook my head. It had to be a draft. Old houses do this, I told myself. But then, at 3:07 a.m., the bedroom camera recorded the figure. Pale, thin, standing in the corner, hair long, disheveled, eyes hollow and black. Its head tilted unnaturally, too far, and the shadows around it rippled like liquid. I paused, zoomed in. The figure moved, though the room was empty when I checked. It glided silently across the floor, feet not touching, shadows bending around it. A soft whisper carried across the footage. You shouldn't be here. By the third night, we were obsessed. Cameras in every room strategically placed. Every hour recorded, every frame scrutinized. Shadows moved at the edge of the lenses, just out of focus, but always there, watching, waiting. Then came the audio. Footsteps, slow and deliberate, pacing the hallway. Doors creaking open and slamming shut. Soft breathing behind the cameras, though no one was in the room. Whispers layered, overlapping, forming fragmented words. Join, stay, forever. One night, alone in the living room, I watched live footage on my laptop. The figure appeared again, floating silently. Its head tilted toward the camera. The shadows behind it stretched along the walls unnaturally, writhing like smoke. The temperature dropped. I could see my breath. The whisper grew louder, almost intelligible. You can't leave. I tried to stand, but my legs were frozen. The figure moved closer, gliding without sound. Shadows coiled around the furniture, around me, pressing, shaping, moving like living things. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. Suddenly, the figure vanished, but the camera captured something else. Shapes in the corners of the room, twisting, coiling, faces emerging from the darkness, mouths open in silent screams. The whispers escalated into a deafening chorus. We tried to leave, but the front door wouldn't budge, locked, though we had keys in our hands. Shadows pressed against the windows, writhing outside. The figure reappeared behind us, floating, whispers layered over hundreds of whispers. We scrambled, desperate, panicking, camera spinning, recording everything: the terror, the shadows, the unseen hands that pushed and tugged at us. A wet, gurgling sound echoed from the kitchen. Footsteps above us, breathing behind the walls. We didn't stop until we were outside, rain drenching us, fog curling around our ankles. The house remained still, silent, but the cameras recorded every movement, every shadow, every whisper. By morning, we knew the footage was only the beginning. The house had awakened. It was aware, patient, intelligent, waiting. And the recordings, the cameras, they weren't just capturing the activity. They were feeding it, recording it for something else, someone else to see. Nightmen Podcast. That night, sleep was impossible. Every creak in the old Elm Street house sounded like footsteps. Shadows outside the windows stretched and twisted, independent of the streetlights. Every faint noise, the hum of the refrigerator, the wind rattling the siding, felt alive, deliberate. We gathered in the living room, surrounded by cameras, flashlights shaking in our hands. Every screen flickered, showing shadows moving in ways our eyes couldn't perceive. The figure appeared again, a pale, thin girl, hair tangled, dress soaked, eyes hollow and black. Shadows bent around her like liquid. "You shouldn't be here." Her voice layered over hundreds of whispers, soft, pleading, but edged with menace. The air grew heavy, thick, and oppressive. Every step we took seemed resisted by invisible forces. The whispers became intelligible, forming commands. "Stay, join us, forever." Suddenly, the floorboards creaked above us. Doors slammed shut in distant rooms. Footsteps echoed along hallways, yet no one was there. Shadows pulled at the corners of the room, rising, twisting, reaching. Faces formed in the darkness, twisted, screaming silently. The girl floated closer, her hand extended. We could see hundreds of tiny, distorted faces forming in the shadows, mouths opening and closing, eyes hollow and black. The cameras recorded everything, capturing the impossible: shadows moving independently, shapes defying physics, whispers layered over whispers. Then the hidden force struck. A wall panel slammed open. Shadows surged, pressing against us, cold and solid. The floor beneath our feet seemed to become liquid, resisting every step. We tried to run, stumble, claw our way to the exit, but the shadows wrapped around our legs, pulling, tugging. The whispers intensified, layering into a deafening roar. "Join, stay, forever." We screamed. Flashlights spun, illuminating the faceless figures climbing walls, slipping across floors. The girl hovered above, voice echoing in impossible harmonics. "You belong here." Finally, we broke free, scrambling toward the front door. It swung open just as the shadows recoiled, hissing, merging back into the corners. Outside, the night air was cold, wet, and thick with fog. We collapsed on the sidewalk, gasping, hearts pounding. The house remained silent, waiting, watching. The footage we recovered was horrifying. Shadows twisting, faces in the walls, whispering voices.
figures moving where no one could be, the girl always watching, guiding the unseen entities. The cameras didn't just capture the activity, they fed the darkness, recording it for something beyond comprehension. Days passed, weeks. Sleep never returned. The whispers followed us. Shadows flickered in our apartments, stretching beyond light, curling at the edges of vision. Dreams were haunted by the girl, the shapes, the unseen horrors of Elm Street. We knew the house had marked us, patient, intelligent, calculating, waiting for the moment we let our guard down. Every creak, every flicker of shadow, every cold breath, reminders that we were never safe. One night, alone, I felt it, a cold brush across my arm. The voice came softly, layered with hundreds of whispers. You cannot leave. You joined forever. We had escaped the house physically, but not the presence. It followed us, watching, waiting. Shadows lingered in corners, whispers echoed in walls, and the girl, pale, hollow, eternal, remained. And deep down, we knew if we ever returned, the cameras would capture it all again. The shadows would rise, the whispers would call, and we may not survive it. The house is patient. The darkness waits, and it always will. Nightmen Podcast, our friend's haunted story. It all started when our friend, Liam, invited us to his family's old farmhouse in rural Pennsylvania. The house had been abandoned for decades, creaking and sagging under its own weight. Rumors had always surrounded it, stories of disappearances, strange noises, and shadows moving in impossible ways. I swear it's nothing, Liam said as we approached, the sun dipping behind the trees. Just old wood, drafts, and my imagination. But even from outside, the house seemed alive. Windows dark and staring, the front door warped and swollen, groaning softly in the wind. The air was thick, humid, smelling faintly of rot and decay. We entered. Floorboards creaked beneath our feet. Shadows stretched unnaturally along the walls. The main room was dusty, filled with broken furniture and remnants of a life long past. This place, it feels wrong, Sarah whispered. Liam laughed nervously. It's just old. Come on, let's explore. The first strange occurrence happened in the hallway. A door at the end swung open slowly, though no wind was blowing. A soft whisper drifted from within. We froze. Footsteps echoed above us, slow, deliberate, though the upper floor was empty. Shadows moved independently of the candlelight, coiling along the walls, pooling in corners. I don't like this, Mike said, voice trembling. Maybe we should go. But curiosity, or perhaps foolish bravery, pushed us onward. We explored room after room. The walls were etched with scratches, some forming strange symbols, others resembling faces frozen in silent screams. Shadows flickered at the corners of our vision. Doors creaked open and slammed shut. The air grew colder with each step. Then we found the basement door. Liam hesitated, hand on the knob. He admitted, I've never gone down there alone. We descended. The stairs were steep and rotting. The air grew heavy, thick with dust and a metallic scent. Shadows twisted unnaturally, forming shapes that seemed alive, rhythming along the walls. The basement stretched far deeper than the house should have allowed. In the corner, a figure appeared. A girl, pale and thin, hair tangled, dress torn. Her eyes hollow, her presence bending the shadows around her. Her voice, layered with whispers, drifted through the room. You shouldn't be here. The walls pulsed.
the shadows pressing closer. Faces appeared in the plaster, mouths opening in silent screams. Whispers became a chorus of commands. Stay forever. Join. We tried to step back. The air thickened, resisting. The shadows twisted, coiling around our feet, pulling, tugging. The girl floated closer, hand extended. Cold fingers grazed our skin, sending a shiver down our spines. Then, a trap door opened beneath some old crates, revealing stairs descending even deeper into darkness. The whispers screamed, "Down! It waits!" Fear clawed at us, but some primal force pushed us forward. Step by step, we descended into air heavy with rot, cold and oppressive. Shadows clung to corners, faces in the plaster twitching, mouths opening silently. Whispers layered over themselves, calling our names, warning, pleading. We ran blindly, tripping on the slick, grimy floor. Flashlights spun, illuminating the trapped figures and the girl, shadows rhythming, pulling them back into the walls. Wet, gurgling sounds echoed from the darkness behind us, like something alive, moving beneath the floor. Finally, we burst through the gap to the main basement. The trap door slammed shut, as if the house had swallowed the lower room whole. Outside, the night was cold and foggy. We collapsed on the grass, hearts pounding. The house waited, silent, patient, watching. Nightmen Podcast. We didn't sleep that night. Every floorboard in our own homes seemed to groan under invisible weight. Every shadow stretched unnaturally, as if reaching for us. Every small sound, the creak of a chair, the hum of a refrigerator, echoed the basement, the girl, the walls of that house. And yet, by the next evening, a pull stronger than fear drew us back. The farmhouse on Maple Street loomed ahead, shrouded in mist and darkness. Its windows were black, staring at us like eyes that had been watching for decades. The front door swung open easily, as though expecting us. Inside, the air was thicker, heavy with anticipation. Silence pressed down, broken only by distant dripping water. The basement door was in front of us, scarred and reinforced with rusted bolts. I felt the chill radiating from it, even before touching the knob. As soon as it opened, a cold gust rushed past, carrying the same metallic, rotten scent. Descending the stairs, our flashlights barely pierced the shadows. The hidden room at the far end yawned before us, dark as night. A faint whisper echoed, "Come, come, come." Every instinct screamed to flee, yet we moved forward, step by step, into the room where the air felt solid, pressing against our lungs. The room was impossibly vast. Walls stretched beyond perception, etched with scratches, some forming faces screaming silently, others indecipherable. Warnings, shadows twisted unnaturally, crawling along the walls and ceiling. Then she appeared, the girl, pale, thin, hair tangled, dress wet and torn. Hollow eyes scanned us, shadows rippling around her like black water. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered. Her voice layered with hundreds of whispers, pleading, angry, soft, sharp. Shadows reached toward us, brushing without touching. We tried to retreat. The air thickened, pressing against us like a living thing. The walls pulsed in time with our racing hearts. Faces etched into the plaster twitched, mouths frozen mid-scream. The floor shifted, a hidden trapdoor slid open beneath old crates, revealing stairs descending even deeper. Her voice floated above it. "Down, it waits." Fear clawed at our bones, but some primal force drew us forward. Step by step, we descended. The air grew colder, heavier, reeking of iron and decay. Shadows clung to every corner. Faces in the walls seemed alive, mouths opening silently. Whispers layered, calling our names, pleading, warning. The girl floated closer, hand extended. Stay. Forever. Cold fingers grazed my arm. I screamed, struggling. Shadows pressed tighter. Figures emerged from the walls, pale, twisted, eyes wide, mouths frozen mid-scream. Whispers rose to a deafening crescendo, overlapping into impossible harmonics. We ran, blindly, slipping on the wet, grimy floor. Flashlights spun, illuminating trapped figures, shadows writhing around the girl, pulling them back into the walls. A wet, gurgling sound echoed from the darkness, like water mixed with something inhuman. The stairs to the upper basement beckoned. We scrambled, tearing hands across splintered wood, clawing at walls as shadows reached, tugged, whispered. Finally, we burst through the gap to the main basement. The trapdoor slammed shut, swallowing the lower room. Outside, rain drenched us, fog curling around our feet. Knees weak, hearts hammering, silence pressing like a physical weight. The house waited, watching, patient, hungry. Days and weeks passed. We avoided the street, avoided the house. Even mentioning it seemed dangerous. But the whispers followed, faintly, wherever we went. Shadows stretched, creaks in our home sounded like footsteps. Dreams were haunted by the basement, the girl, the trapped faces. Research revealed its history. Stories of missing people, hidden rooms, strange deaths. Folklore dismissed by the townsfolk, but we knew the truth. The house was alive. We had survived, but it had not forgotten. And yet, I could never escape entirely. At night, whispers curled from the walls, scratches raked behind doors, shadows stretched just beyond the edge of vision. Sometimes, cold fingers brushed my skin. The voice came softly, teasing, demanding. You opened my door. You cannot leave. I know, in my bones, that one day we, or someone else, will return. The house will call. The basement will open. Shadows will move. The girl will wait. Patient, hungry, eternal. The hidden room waits. The shadows wait. The girl waits. And when that day comes, we may not escape. Nightmen Podcast. The Final Escape. Haunted House Secrets Revealed. It began as a dare, a simple challenge to explore the old Harrow house on the outskirts of town. Local kids whispered about it, a sprawling Victorian mansion abandoned for decades, windows boarded, paint peeling, stories of people who entered and never returned. I heard the attic moves at night, my friend Ellie said nervously as we approached, flashlights cutting through the fog. They say the walls whisper secrets you weren't meant to hear. I laughed, though my stomach twisted in unease. It's just an old house. Let's see what's inside. The front door groaned as we pushed it open. Dust swirled in the stale air. Shadows clung to corners, moving slightly, independent of the light. Every creak of the floorboards echoed like footsteps. The house felt alive, watching. We explored the ground floor first. Broken furniture, torn curtains, walls scratched with cryptic messages and strange symbols. Occasionally, a whisper drifted from the shadows. Leave before it's too late. We froze, looking at each other. Was it our imagination? A draft? But the shadows, they seemed to react, pulsing, stretching along the walls. The hallway led to a stairwell descending into the basement. Ellie hesitated, hand on the railing. I I don't know about this. I nodded, my own fear lurking beneath a veneer of bravado. We came this far. Down we went. The basement was cold, damp, smelling faintly of mold and decay. Shadows twisted along the walls, almost sentient. The air pressed against our chests, thick and heavy. Then we saw it, a hidden door at the far end, partially obscured by crates. A chill radiated from it, a whisper brushing past our ears. Do not open. But curiosity won. We moved the crates, revealing a small latch. The door creaked open, revealing a narrow passage descending even further into darkness. The shadows pulsed, writhing like living smoke. We took a step inside. Immediately, the atmosphere changed. The air was solid, heavy, pressing against our lungs. Whispers layered, forming hundreds of voices, pleading, warning, laughing. Faces appeared in the walls, distorted, twisted, silent screams frozen in plaster. Then she appeared, pale, thin, hair tangled, dress torn, eyes hollow, shadows rippled around her like water. Her voice floated above the whispers. You shouldn't be here. The floor shifted. A trapdoor slid open beneath some old crates, revealing stairs descending into a pit of darkness. The whispers intensified. Down, it waits, join, forever. Fear clawed at every inch of us, but we moved, pulled forward by some primal force. Step by step, into a darkness that reeked of iron and rot. Shadows clung to every corner. Faces etched in the walls twitched, mouths opening silently. We ran blindly, slipping on the wet, grimy floor. Flashlights spun, illuminating trapped figures. Shadows writhing around the girl, pulling them back into the walls. Wet, gurgling sounds echoed from the abyss. Finally, we stumbled back onto the basement stairs. The trap door slammed shut, sealing the horrors below. Outside, the fog wrapped around the house like unseen hands. Rain fell steadily, soaking us to the bone. The mansion remained silent, waiting, watching. Days passed, weeks. The whispers followed us. Shadows stretched along the corners of our homes. Dreams were haunted by the girl, the hidden room, the trapped figures. We researched the house's history, decades of disappearances, old newspapers describing hidden rooms and sudden deaths, folklore dismissed by townsfolk, but we knew the truth. The house was alive, patient, calculating, and it had marked us. Nightmen Podcast. That night, none of us slept. Every shadow in our rooms seemed alive, stretching and writhing in impossible ways. Every creak, every whisper from outside, every draft of cold air reminded us of the Harrow house. And yet, something compelled us to return. Not curiosity, but a dreadful need to confront the darkness that had marked us. The mansion loomed through the fog, rain slicking the warped boards. Its windows were black, empty, yet watching. The front door swung open, as if expecting us. Inside, the air was thick, almost liquid, pressing down. Silence ruled, broken only by distant water dripping. The basement door waited, scarred, reinforced, emanating cold that crawled under our skin. When I touched the knob, A gust of air rushed past, smelling of iron, rot, and decay. Descending the stairs, flashlights barely pierced the darkness. The hidden passage at the far end yawned, dark as night. A whisper floated from it. Come, come, come. Every instinct screamed to run, but we moved forward, step by step, into the room where the air felt alive, pressing against our lungs. The room stretched beyond perception, walls etched with scratches, twisted faces frozen in silent screams, letters forming impossible warnings. Shadows wriggled, coiling like living things, waiting. Then she appeared, the girl, pale, thin, hair tangled, dress torn. Hollow eyes scanning us. Shadows rippled around her like liquid. Her voice layered over hundreds of whispers. You shouldn't be here. The floor shifted. A trapdoor slid open beneath crates, revealing stairs descending deeper into darkness. Her voice floated above the whispers. Down, it waits for you. Fear clawed at us, but some primal force pulled us forward, step by step, into air thick with iron and rot. Shadows clung to corners, faces in the walls twitching, mouths opening silently. Whispers layered, calling our names, pleading, warning. The girl floated closer, hand extended. Stay, forever. Cold fingers grazed our skin. Shadows pressed, twisting, pulling. Figures emerged from the walls, pale, distorted, eyes wide open, mouths frozen mid-scream. Whispers escalated to a deafening chorus. We ran blindly, slipping on the wet floor. Flashlights spun, illuminating trapped figures, shadows writhing around the girl, pulling them back into the walls. Wet, gurgling sounds echoed from the darkness, like water mixed with something inhuman. Stairs to the upper basement appeared. We scrambled, hands clawing splintered wood, hearts hammering, shadows tugging, whispering. Finally, we burst through to the main basement. The trap door slammed shut, swallowing the lower room. Outside, rain drenched us, fog curling around our ankles. Knees weak, hearts racing, silence pressing like a physical weight. The mansion waited, patient, calculating, watching. Weeks passed. We avoided the street, the house, even talking about it. But the whispers followed us. Shadows stretched in our homes, elongated and impossible. Dreams were haunted by the basement, the girl, and the trapped figures. Research revealed decades of disappearances, hidden rooms, strange deaths. Folklore dismissed, but the truth was clear. The house was alive, and it had marked us. At night, I feel whispers in the walls, scratches behind doors, shadows stretching beyond sight. Cold fingers brush my skin. The voice comes softly, layered with hundreds of whispers. You opened my door. You cannot leave. I know, deep in my bones, one day we, or someone else, will return. The mansion will call. The basement will open. Shadows will move. The girl will wait, patient, hungry, eternal. The hidden room waits. The shadows wait. The girl waits. And when that day comes, escape may be impossible. Nightmen Podcast.